Here is Bernie Sanders. Dr. King defeated racist government officials and ended segregation through disciplined, nonviolent resistance. Defeating Trumpism, oligarchy, and authoritarianism requires that same level of discipline. Violent protests are counterproductive and play right into Trump's playbook. Except this was the attitude demonstrated towards MLK from mainstream media at the time. I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow. Bernie Sanders, who was literally there. I don't mean this as a joke like, haha, he's old. He was literally there. Okay? Bernie Sanders, who was arrested. Like, not only was he literally there, he was arrested at a non-violent protest that the media at the time considered to be a violent, disruptive protest, is now taking this position. It's like, bro, you were there. Like, here is Bernie Sanders arrested at the Chicago civil rights protest. On August 12, 1963, Bernie was charged with resisting arrest for his role in the Chicago protests against the use of Willis wagons. He was found guilty and paid a fine of $25. Also, notice the gear that the cops had at the time. Like, this guy is literally, this guy has a lung dart in his mouth, bro, while he's arresting Bernard Sanders. What the hell is this take? We used to be a proper country. I know. Well, not so proper even back then. Like, the appropriate position to take in this circumstance is to say property damage is understandably a distraction. Property damage, or hyper-focusing on property damage, is a distraction when real lives are at stake. Anyone who uses that as a reason to deploy the Marines, or anyone who hyper-focuses that, is basically playing into Trump's hands more so than the people who are actually at those protests, okay? Yes, apparently the Marines have now mobilized at the non-violent. You were literally there at the non-violent protest that everyone considered to be violent and unpopular, so I have no idea what this statement does other than lean into the hysteria that gives Trump enough momentum to mobilize the Marines on U.S. soil illegally. It's extra crazy because Kamala Harris had a better take on this than Bernard did. I can't believe Mamala, my queen. Mamala, my queen. How many activists and leaders were murdered and lynched for this guy to spout some dumb shit like this? Yeah, I don't. If you're angry at the protest, not the conditions that produced the protest, you lost the plot. Bernice King, who is the daughter of MLK Jr., says, as my father said, but it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without at the same time condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the black poor has worsened over the last 12 or 15 years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity. What's crazy is, like, as I said, Bernard Sanders himself participated in these. And he got arrested for his participation. And those protests were damn near identical to the ones that you see today, with one exception. The response and the agitative initiatives from the cops. The response is far more severe, and the agitation from the cops is far more severe as well. The violence that we have normalized that come from the cops and the escalation that happens every single time from the cops is either comparable or even worse. They're more militarized. I mean, back then they used to do the water cannons and police dogs and obviously a bunch of horrible things as well. But the reason why I'm pointing to this is because, again, Freedom Riders, sit-ins, May 1961, 2 years before Bernie even joined the protest and got arrested. Do you approve or disapprove of what the Freedom Riders are doing? 22% approve, 61% disapprove. Do you think sit-ins at lunch counters and freedom buses and other demonstrations by black people will hurt or help the black people's chances of being integrated in the South? 28% say help, 57% say hurt. Here is more information from the March on Washington. What are your feelings about this proposed mass civil rights rally? 60% have an unfavorable opinion, 23% have a favorable opinion. Whites on demonstrations by black people on October 1966. All in all, do you feel the demonstrations by black people on civil rights have helped or hurt more in the advancement of black rights? 15% say helps, 85% say hurts. This is, of course, white respondents only. So the thing to consider here is that if you are trying to win over as many people as possible, like all these people, they say optics this, optics that, they don't understand that throughout history, optics have never mattered. Okay? Optics do not matter to many people because power never concedes without response. Power never concedes without retaliation. It doesn't work that way. It is the very fact that people are on the streets doing shit like this from time to time, when the overwhelming majority of the protests are peaceful and the actual reason for the protests themselves are perfectly valid and moral, okay, stopping ICE detentions in a sanctuary state, in a sanctuary city. The reason that these protests, this mass civil unrest is taking place is an indication that we do not have an adequate pressure valve. We do not have an adequate democratic pressure valve here because our leadership is not fighting for us. Our leadership has not been able to successfully abide by the previous promises that they had met to protect our own communities. In a place like California, in a place like Los Angeles, of course this kind of unrest is going to take place. This is the point I was making to Mason as well. This kind of collapse takes place when institutions fail to even create the notion of a social contract, when that is ripped apart unjustifiably, when people recognize it, when people understand that there is no semblance of justice here and only injustice, and that is becoming the norm, they get angry and they protest. And in the process of this protest, the most violent entity is always the police. The escalating factor is always the police. And the double standard here is so glaringly obvious. People stood on the 101 freeway. Okay? They chained, they created a human chain and stopped traffic on the 101 freeway for an extended period of time. We saw it happen. I was there. I'm on the freeway, literally in this video. Okay? Everyone gets mad at that. They go, how dare these people actually stop the freeway? This is unacceptable, right? Meanwhile, the freeway was stopped completely by not just the human chain protesters, but by cops, because cops use that freeway as a staging ground. No one cares when cops stop the freeway so that they can bring more of their dipshit friends to go upstairs, to go up the ramp and tear gas citizens, tear gas civilians who are unarmed, peacefully protesting, mind you. But everybody loses their mind when those same civilians actually disrupt traffic. Do you understand how stupid this is? Then it seems like you don't care about the disruption of traffic. You simply care about these protesters that are making you aware of the injustice that is taking place by disrupting traffic. You can hyper-focus on peaceful brick throwing all day, every day. Oh, yes, the burning cars really makes me want to help. Dog, we know you don't want to help. You're on Twitch. You're sitting in the chat of someone, and your only purpose here is to just basically be like, oh, I was going to go out and protest, but I saw a car burning, and I decided this, you know? Exactly. At least you admit it. It's always like this, who don't give a shit, who actually most likely like what is happening with ICE and the mass deportations, that turn around and go, oh, man, I was just about to go outside, but then I saw a Waymo burning and I decided, oh, these guys, you know? actually, I should actually crack heads harder. Cops should crack heads harder. You say peaceful brick throwing, okay? But you fail to consider that the cops not only are wearing riot gear, but the cops are also wearing the riot gear that we paid for and using tear gas, chemical weapons that we paid for on us, the civilians, the citizens. You're not a cop in that situation. Who do you think you're closer to? Politicians who demand that ICE agents go and kidnap people, or your neighbors that are getting kidnapped? Who do you think you are closer to in society? Are you a cop, or are you the civilian that's protesting? Maybe you don't actually see yourself in the shoes of someone who would go out there and actually protest against this kind of thing. But make no mistake, there will come a day when there is something you feel worthy of protest. And then you'll understand. When they gas you, when they use explosive ordinances around you, when they beat the shit out of you, only then will you understand. You can't arm the police like dog-faced Marines about to retake Fallujah and then not expect this to happen. Whose bright idea was it anyway to militarize America's police? Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. Like, what do you think is more dangerous? Tear gas and explosive ordinances, or water bottles that they're tossing in the direction of cops that have riot gear on? I'll tell you what's more dangerous. It's the explosives, okay? Here, look at this.
I think they're going to push in from this side of the road.
So I'm over here trying to explain the cops that moved into the other side of the freeway, and they're going to move in a single file line to kettle and corral all the protesters that are on the street, right? But in the process, of course, they're like deploying explosives. Here, look.
Oh, fuck. That's my hair up. Anyway, I think they're going to push in from this side of the road.
You got no excuses. You belong to a society that has a vision of rule of law. Your law enforcement represents it, and if you don't believe in it, you're in the wrong place. Brother, the reason why this is happening is because the rule of law is collapsing. Do you not understand that? Like, do you think people just did this because they're bored? Do you think people did this because they're like, oh man, I'm so bored, I can't wait to instead of on this beautiful Sunday, instead of going out and getting ice cream and, like, I don't know, buying a blind box of Labubus or whatever the people do, they were like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to protest. The reason why they're doing that is because the rule of law is collapsing. And these are people who are aware enough to recognize it. You, on the other hand, are not aware. When people who are tasked with protecting us and serving us, okay, because I understand that in theory, that's what law enforcement is supposed to do. When people who are tasked with protecting us and serving us are no longer serving us or protecting us, what are people supposed to do? This argument, by the way, is the exact same argument that the white moderate placed during every tumultuous period, every instance of struggle, including the civil rights struggle. That's why I was just talking about MLK. But the thing is, they have federal law backing them up. Even if you got to the point, there's no way the protesters would go against the LAPD. Segregation was also a legal process. Slavery was also a legal process. Mass kidnappings of random people that are cooperating with the immigration authorities simply because the most racist people in America feel better about their position in society is also a legal process, just like those other legal processes. And thank God people fought back against those otherwise legal processes. The state always has the ultimate power of conducting violent affairs. The state has a monopoly on violence. They can do whatever they want. Okay? It's the law. They are the law. The state makes the law. And even if the state itself sometimes actually moves outside of the confines of pre-existing law, as they are doing right now with their dragnet campaigns and with their with their elimination of due process, tomorrow they can make that a legal part of the law. At which point you have to ask yourself, is this justifiable? Many people, myself included, understandably do not consider it justifiable, do not consider it moral. We consider it immoral. But you do realize that the way these protests are going will just result in the assault against federal officers instead of making a strong point. Yes, you're doing the thing. You're doing the same thing. Okay? My job here is to get you and anyone else that goes, ugh, I don't like the optics of what people are doing. Why don't they just say no? Like, what are people supposed to do? The reason why people are pushed to this point is because the previous instances did not work. Okay? You're doing the same exact thing that people did to MLK. I don't understand. Why won't people sit at home and go, this is really messed up. I don't like it. You know? Why don't they just say that? Imagine how much more support they would get if they waved American flags. Can somebody tell them? This is basic politics 101. You're an Australian in Australia with 2 foreign flags in your name. Shut the up. There are many different pressure valves. Okay? There are many different pressure valves in society. Okay? There are many different pressure valves in society. Elections are one of them. Okay? The courts is another one. The social contract that dictates that you are supposed to protect and serve the citizens if you are a member of law enforcement, both at the federal level or at the local level or at the state level. When all of those systems collapse, or rather are used against the citizenry, of course people are going to get mad. They will call you violent. If your tactics disrupt the order of things under capitalism, you may well be accused of violence, because violence is an elastic term of that often deployed to vilify people who threaten the status quo. Conditions that the state characterizes as peaceful are, in reality, quite violent. Even as people experience the violence of poverty, the torture of imprisonment, the brutality of policing, the denial of health care, and many other violent functions of this system, we are told we are experiencing peace, so long as everyone is cooperating. When state actors refer to peace, they are really talking about order. When they refer to peaceful protest, they are talking about cooperative protest that obediently stays within the lines drawn by the state. The more uncooperative you are, the more you will be accused of aggression and violence. It is therefore imperative that the state not be the arbiter of what violence means amongst the people seeking justice. There has never been an instance where there has been effective struggle, effective civil rights struggle, where people are demanding that the systems change, or people are tired of the lawfare that they experience and the harm that the state causes, that people have looked at in real time and said, well, this kind of action actually is quite peaceful, and I like it. No, everybody, every single person that is an onlooker from afar, that is not actually invested in change, or rather, from their privileged position, actually likes the existing order, the existing hierarchy, will turn around and say, these guys are violent. I can't see myself being on board with this. This is so weird, a whole ass deja vu. We can put your BLM coverage years ago and today's. It's the exact same. Even gray names nowadays understand what BLM truly is for. They just really want to derail you just for the sake of lulz. Shaking my head. I know. It's really interesting because, you know, this didn't happen overnight. Like, I've been with this shit for a minute now. And this is precisely what people were saying during the Black Lives Matter protests as well. The only difference, I guess, is that Trump is now, one, deployed the Marines, and two, the struggle started way earlier, not at the end of Donald Trump's 4 years, but instead, basically in the first 6 months. 90% or 99% of protesters are peaceful, okay, as opposed to the 1% that, like, shit up in the process of anger and resentment in this chaotic situation, right? Whereas 100% of the cops are unconditionally not peaceful. There is no peaceful cop in this situation. They all have guns. They all have less lethal weapons. They train those less lethal weapons on the citizens. They gas the citizens. You can't, it doesn't have to be a situation where, like, the people are armed for you to understand that the asymmetry is baked within the system. Okay? It's so stupid. I was trying to take a piss yesterday, and getting information out of cops during that process is, like, impossible. You saw it. I was like, how do we leave this area? Like, that's your job, right? Your job is crowd dispersal and they wouldn't let me leave the area. Isn't that weird? Why would they not leave? Why would they not let you leave the area? Perhaps the reason why they don't want you to leave the area is so that they can pummel your skull in.